guys, welcome to CADS 3853 module number 18. And in this module we're going to continue the stock planning method discussion that we started in last module. In last module we took a look at the SSR method, and in this module we are going to focus on the week supply method as the second stock planning method. And this is the same slide we already looked at in last module. This slide introduced the three stock planning methods, the SSR method and week supply method and basic stock method. In this module, we are going to take a look at the second one, the week supply method. As I said in last module, week supply method uses the turnover, stock inventory turnover, as the efficiency measure to plan the stock level. Whereas the SSR method, we learned a new stock efficiency measure called stock sales ratio, or SSR, and we utilize the SSR to plan the stock level. Okay, the basic assumption for this week supply method of stock planning to work is that weekly sales are not going to be different across different weeks in a year. Okay, so basically this method is really applicable when we can kind of imagine or project that the sales are going to be pretty, consistent and not fluctuating a whole lot throughout the year. Okay, if that's the case, then as long as we have enough inventory to support a certain number of weeks supply, then that would be enough. And that's the basic premise of this method. So when we do plan the number of weeks that we need to, have the inventory to support sales for, and we determine that as what we call number of weeks supply, and that is determined as the number of weeks that it takes for one stock turn to occur. Okay. So we are basing our inventory investment on the average amount of merchandise that is going to be selling over that number of weeks for which the one stock turn will occur. So for us to use the week supply method planning, we will have to first plan our turnover and use that turnover as our efficiency measure to determine the appropriate number of weeks of supply. Okay, how many weeks it takes for one stock turn to occur. Okay, so for how long does it take for the average inventory to be sold and replaced? Okay, so we have to calculate that, and that's what we call number of weeks supply. And number of weeks of supply is calculated by dividing the number of weeks that exists in the period for which the turnover was calculated and divide that by turnover. In other words, if we plan a seasonal turnover, then the numerator for the number of weeks will have to be 26 weeks, because a season has 26 weeks. If we are planning an annual turnover, and we want to calculate the number of weeks supply based on that annual turnover, then the numerator portion of this formula, the number of weeks, will have to be 52 weeks, right? Because a year has 52 weeks. If we're using a quarterly turnover, then the number of weeks will be 13. So that number of weeks in this formula is going to be determined by for what period this turnover is planned. So again, the meaning of this number of weeks of supply, the number that you will calculate by using this formula, is going to be the number of weeks it takes to sell one turn of stock, okay, given the turnover planned. And again, what that means is the number of weeks worth of merchandise we want to have on hand on average. Okay, that actually means to us the average inventory or average stock, right? So the number of weeks of supply basically mean how many weeks it takes to sell one average inventory. Because the whole concept is that we want to carry our average inventory all the time in our store, consistently throughout the year or the season. Given this assumption and plan, our planned stock level is going to be that number of weeks supply that we just calculated based on the formula that we saw in the previous slide times the average weekly sales. So we know how many weeks it takes for one stock turn to occur, And if we know how much we sell every week on average, then we multiply these two numbers together to be able to know what should be our average inventory throughout the period, right? So that the planned stock is eventually the same as the average inventory or average stock at retail. Remember that number of weeks supply we calculated by dividing the number of weeks existing in the period for which the turnover was calculated and divide that by turnover, right? So number of weeks divided by turnover times average weekly sales will be another formula that we can derive from the previous formula for planned stock. Okay, again, remember that this planned stock is the same as the average stock at retail or average inventory at retail. Again, that average inventory basically means the stock amount sold and replaced during that one stock turn period. Okay, so let's work on a simple example using the week supply method. Okay, the seasonal turnover stock turn was planned to be 4.0. Okay, and seasonal sales were planned to be $78,000. And remember that a season has 6 months, which is 26 weeks. Okay, then what is the planned stock level at retail, obviously? Okay, and what's the meaning of this dollar amount? Okay, so let's first calculate planned stock level. So given this turnover plan, we first had to calculate the number of weeks of supply. And a season has 26 weeks, so 26 divided by the seasonal turnover of 4, that gave us a number of weeks supply of 6.5. This means we want to carry 6.5 weeks sales worth merchandise, right? And then we also needed to know the average weekly sale. What were given to us was a seasonal sales, right? And a season has 26 weeks, so on average each week we're going to sell $78,000 seasonal sale divided by 26 weeks, so that was $3,000. So on average every week we're going to sell around $3,000. Okay, then the planned stock level is going to be that number of weeks supply times that average weekly sales, so 6.5 times $3,000, and that would be $19,500. Okay, so if this is the planned stock level based on the week supply method, then what does this actually mean to us? This planned stock figure means this is going to be our average inventory or average stock, right? Again, another way of saying it is that we are going to try to maintain our inventory to be around $19,500 all the time, every month, throughout the year, or throughout the season in this case, every month, every week, and things like that. So that $19,500 worth of stock will be sold over around 6.5 weeks, right? And that is the one stock turn worth of merchandise, right? So we want to have 6.5 weeks sales worth of merchandise, which is $19,500 in our stock on average. So this is going to be our average inventory or average stock. That's the interpretation of this number. So for the planned stock for the from based on the week supply method, in the kind of comparing to the SSR method, the SSR method gave us the BOM stock level, right? So for beginning of month, how much we're going to carry, right? And we plan the BOM for each month separately because we have SSR for each month separately. Whereas when we use the week supply method, we don't plan each month separately. Okay? Instead, we plan one stock level, which is the average stock level, and we want this average stock level to be maintained all the time, right? So for every month, the BOM should be this planned stock level, average stock level, and the EOM should be again this stock level. So BOM, EOM, whenever in the middle of the month stock level, that should be all kind of similar, around $19,500, and that's the kind of the concept of this week supply method, which is different from the SSR method. So when would be most appropriate to use the week supply method to plan stock levels? because the week supply method uses the assumption that the sales are constant, right, consistent throughout the period, we usually use this week supply method for a staple merchandise. Staple basically means that the sales are stable across different weeks, different months, okay, across the entire season or year. Okay. Remember that with this method, the stock level is planned to be directly related to the sales volume, right? It is a direct proportion to the sales. So because the planned stock level is the average weekly sales times the number of weeks supply, right? And number of weeks supply is a set number, one number, a constant number. So your planned stock level will be proportional to your average weekly sales plan, right? But if your sales really don't happen as you planned, or if it's not really stable or constant kind of sales, but the sales pattern really becomes really fluctuating and volatile, up and down and up and down and things like that, then that can give you really volatile stock pattern, right? Think about it. With this week supply method, you're planning to have the same level of stock all the time. So the purchase plan is going to be pretty constant, right? You're going to purchase a certain amount, the same amount every so many weeks. Okay, so if your sales are not going constant rate, but it keeps changing, then there will be time where you don't have enough stock in the store, and there may be time where you have too much stock in the store, right? Because your plan was to have a stream of a constant level of stock, right? So this method is really not applicable to really highly fashionable merchandise whose demand is not predictable, so you cannot really have a good prediction about the sales pattern, with constant sales pattern. That kind of merchandise, for that kind of merchandise, the SSR method will be a whole lot better. All right, let's work on one more practice problem before we conclude this module. Okay. A Department of Staple Merchandise anticipates fall season sales of $150,000, so that's the seasonal sales planned, with a stock turn of 8. Again, that's a seasonal stock turnover. Okay, how much inventory should be on hand using the weeks of supply method? Again, you will first have to calculate the number of weeks supply, and then also need to have an average weekly sales. Then you multiply those two numbers to calculate the inventory planned, or the average inventory. Okay, so the number of weeks supply is number of weeks over turnover. In this case, again, it was a seasonal turnover, so 26 over 8, right? 26 weeks in the season divided by the turnover of 8. Gave us a 3.25 as the number of weeks supply. So that means we need a merchandise that can cover 3.25 weeks sales, right? And then the average weekly sales was calculated based on those seasonal sales of $150,000 and divided by 26 weeks. So that was 5,769.23. Then our planned stock level is going to be the multiplication of these two numbers. So week supply of 3.25 times the average weekly sales of 5,769.23, which gave us the planned stock level of 18,750. Again, then what does this number actually mean? It means that we want to have this $18,750 merchandise in stock on average all the time throughout the season, and this is going to be about worth the sales of 3.25 weeks. Alright, so this concludes module 18 lecture. So we took a look at the week supply method of stock planning in this module, and in next module we're going to take a look at another kind of a stock planning method called basic stock method. Okay, don't forget to work on module practice problem assignment on number 18, which is going to be about the week supply method. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.